Alright guys, welcome back to Regeneration X and another episode of Tardis Talk in which we take a look at episode number 6 of the Doctor Who spin-off class entitled Detained. This week we're seeing the class struck by a meteor which seen them taken out of time and space and placed into a prison which would then incite the anger, leading them to confess the secrets upon picking up a part of the meteor. Their confessions would then be fed to the prisoner who was originally trapped inside of this prison, leading the gang to confess their true feelings to one another. Elle, what were your initial thoughts on this week's episode?
I definitely enjoyed this episode so much more than the past two. I think it felt a lot simpler, and there was a lot of, I think you could say, mind games and things that you had to kind of guess what was going to happen and what did the monster want and things. And you didn't have so many story acts going at one time. It was so paced out, and everything just felt so much better. Like you said, the monster, you didn't see it throughout the entire episode. So it was kind of like that mysterious threat lingering, and you didn't know exactly what it wanted almost until about the last 10-15 minutes when it was announced through Charlie that it was to do with grief and memories and whatnot. And it kind of felt a lot like the Midnight episode from Doctor Who. You didn't ever see the monster and you didn't know exactly what it wanted, even though it was harming people and things. So it reminded me a lot of that, and I think overall it was just a brilliant episode, and it just proved, like episode 3, that you didn't need all these overbearing acts and things. Just less is definitely a lot more.
Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. And you bring up a really good comparison to Midnight, because the fact that we didn't even see the monster, it was all in your head at the end of the day. You had to imagine what it was that they were actually dealing with, and not knowing what they were dealing with, aside from this meteor that's lying on the floor. It's all there for your interpretation to find out what's going on. Even the ending, we don't exactly know what happened. It's kind of open to interpretation a little. So I really love that. I love the fact that we all had to kind of work out what was going on as they did. And also, where were they? Like, when it first started, I thought they were in space or something like that. But then Charlie sticks his hand out the door and it suddenly comes back in. Like, he almost punched himself in the face. It's a bit weird. I just want to run, jump out that door, see if I can fly him back in. And it was really crazy. It made us feel like, you know, the way that the TARDIS is taken out of time and space and it's placed in some kind of pocket universe. That's kind of what I felt like this was. That's some kind of TARDIS type thing, but without a doorway being taken away from them.
I think that's what I definitely enjoyed about the episode, because they were just as clueless as we were. Like, originally I thought we were in space as well, and that's what they thought. And then I think it was Charlie pointed out that if they were in space, they couldn't breathe. So that was like one thing ticked off the list. And that was kind of like the running theme throughout the episode. Like, if they could like take things out of the conclusion and whatnot and try and whittle down what exactly the monster wanted and things, which I thought was really good, because like you said, it kept you on the edge of your seat and you didn't know what was going to happen, and nobody was really powerful. Like, someone always had a solution, whereas in this, nobody really had a clue on the backstory of the monster, or there was no one with a gun that could just get rid of the monster. So you basically had to use logic, and it was logic that kind of like saw them through to the end.
It was, and I think a lot of that actually came from Tanya herself. I really like Tanya's character in this, because she kind of stepped up as being the leader, where you would think Charlie, being sort of the prince that he is, he would be the one to take responsibility and decide, you know, how they were going to go about working out how to get out of there. But Tanya was actually the one that stood up and decided, look, we'll have to touch this rock, we'll have to try and ask it questions. And I thought that was really cool how she was the one to stand up, when Charlie, maybe it was because he is from Rhodia and it was affecting him in a different way, but the way he reacted, it was like, what's going on with Charlie? He was like so scared and having a complete mental breakdown.
I think that's what I love about Tanya. You kind of forget that she is the youngest, because she almost seems to take like the most logical route and stand up and do what's right without even fearing for like what might happen to her. Like with the rock, I know Matthias picked it up first, but as soon as she kind of realised what might be going on, she was the first one to offer to like pick up the rock and figure out what was going on. And she was the one who kind of like broke down what may or may not be happening. So I'm definitely enjoying Tanya through each and every episode. She always seems to have like a witty line, kind of like Quill. And then when it comes to kind of figuring things out, it always falls to Tanya to kind of take that charge and do what's right.
It does. I think it's a good contrast, because we're going to move on to confession shortly, but Tanya saying that, you know, she feels like they're not really her friends and that they look down on her because she is the youngest. It's so cool seeing that even though she thinks that, she still has that confidence to stand up and sort of take charge of a situation.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about the confessions. And first off, we had Matthias pick up the rock. He confessed, well, his confession was coming out to his gran. That was the big confession. But he was also scared of Charlie and just what Charlie's capable of. And in regards to all of that, he still loves him for it. So I think that's a big confession, and it definitely had an impact on the group. It definitely had an impact on Charlie. But I think it shows, because he is so powerful, the fact that he's got this cabinet of souls and he can use it, and he could potentially wipe out an entire species. There is people that are scared of him, and his own boyfriend is one of them. Meanwhile, Tanya picked it up. She actually stole from a shop. How dare she? I hope she got arrested for this. Maybe paid the price. So she confessed to that. But like I said before, she confessed she doesn't think that they're friends with him, and that Charlie actually thinks that she's pretty stupid. So I thought, this was probably the biggest of the confessions for me. This was the one that I kind of related to, because I could tell, like, from Tanya's character and the way that she was playing this, it come across in that way, and I think it has in the previous episodes, that she does feel like the smaller character, the younger character. I don't know how old she is, but I think she is like maybe a year or two younger than the rest of them. And maybe that's one of the reasons behind them her thinking, because I am so much younger, that is why they look down on us in this way. But I think this episode, if it proved one thing, it's that age doesn't matter, because Tanya can still hang with them, and at the end of the day, she's the one that's leading them.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, I was kind of expecting something to come out about Ram, because for a while now we've been saying that there's definitely chemistry between Tanya and Ram, and even like side glances and things, I was kind of surprised that there was nothing about Ram in there. I definitely thought we'd get some sort of like even more hint towards that through her confession.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We haven't mentioned Ram's confession just yet, but Ram did confess his love for April. And in the last episode, we talked about Tanya and Ram maybe getting together, and them having a relationship, because it felt like there was something there. Like, it seemed as though they were building a friendship, and it was that kind of friendship that it could maybe transition into something else. Well, I guess it's probably the age gap that kind of stops that. But it felt like you said, maybe there was something there, and the camera panning straight to her. It felt as though there was some kind of reaction, and maybe she was jealous of Ram confessing his love for April. Meanwhile, Charlie's confession was that he secretly wants to murder the entire race of the Shadowkin, and that he sometimes hates Matthias for being the one person that actually stops him doing that and from using that cabinet of souls. But he does love Matthias, although he feels guilty about the fact that he's lost all these people and now has that responsibility of what to do with the cabinet of souls. Because I think for Charlie, as much as he wants to murder the entire race of the Shadowkin, and that is now evident from what he said, I don't know if given that chance he would actually go through with it, because we're seeing last episode he had the ability to use the cabinet of souls, use it on the petals or use it on the Shadowkin, and we got stopped right at the very last moment from finding out which way he was going to go. So he could have gone for either one, but I still say, like I said last week, I don't think given the chance he would actually go through with it. I know it was his confession and he said that's what he wants to do, but saying something and actually doing it is completely different. Do you think maybe he will go through with it? Would he have gone through it last week?
See, I'm not too sure. I still stick by it. I'd say Charlie is quite dangerous and things. I think a lot of the time he tries to like take the moral high ground and does what's best for like to get a good reaction out of people. I think a lot of the time, considering he was a prince and things, he kind of takes direction from other people. Like Matthias last week, he didn't do it because of him and things, and he often relies on Quill and whatnot to do things for him, even though it's his slave and whatnot. And I think when it comes to actually making the big decisions, he always has to look for someone else. So it'll be kind of interesting to see if ever there comes a point where he doesn't have someone there for backup, or he doesn't have someone like Matthias to give him the answers that he kind of feels that someone else should. I think given a situation where he's just on his own, I would say he probably would murder the Shadowkin.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think that's a good point. I think a lot of the time that we have seen him, he doesn't sort of take action himself. And I think that probably comes from being the prince and having the other people actually do them decisions for him, like you mentioned. I think that is what we're kind of seeing, because he waits for Miss Quill to kind of come in and do something to save the day. As we're seeing here, given this opportunity where he's kind of the one that should be in charge, he didn't step up and he waited for someone else to actually go ahead and do that. So I think that's a really valid point in regards to Charlie. As we move on though, we've got Ram up next. He confessed to his dad about his leg, so he's now got that robotic leg. But his bigger confession was that he loves April and he actually thinks that April's the one, but he doesn't think April feels the same way about him. So I thought that was it was kind of tragic, I guess, in a way, because you could tell from Ram's character how much he does feel for April, but then obviously having that same feeling that she doesn't love him back in the same way, that's kind of a big thing. What do you make of the whole April-Ram situation? Because if we talk about April's confession, she actually confirms, in a way, what Ram was thinking, because she thinks that she'll never love him the way that he loves her. What did you make of the whole April-Ram confession situation?
I think for me, I was definitely glad that April almost questioned the relationship, because I know I said that it was definitely moving far too quick and he'd only just lost his girlfriend, yet he was already like trying to hit on her and things, they slept together. So I was kind of glad that she too questioned it and kind of wanted to know why he's all of a sudden in love with her and things. So I think that was definitely like, a huge point for me, and it kind of makes things feel a little bit more real. But then it was also interesting to see Ram kind of revert to pretending to be the jock again and kind of saying dickish things to make me kind of hate him again, saying that he's a big catch and like he can have anyone he wants. So that was kind of interesting to see him like, I think that's a common theme where Ram, like every time something goes wrong, he kind of reverts to trying to be that jock, yet we know through circumstances that he is a nice guy and it's just something he tends to rely on, is kind of like his barrier.
Yeah, it's kind of like a safety mechanism, isn't it? That kind of kicks in every time someone sort of sees the real him. He'll kind of put up, that false image that he isn't the person that they think he is, and he is that jock, which we all know that really isn't the case. And he's a really loving guy. He's totally in love with April, even if she doesn't quite feel the same way. But like you said, I guess it's a good thing to have this happen, because we've questioned throughout Tardis Talk the fact that these relationships are like, they've come about so quickly, and it's been a really short matter of time, yet everyone seems to be completely in love. Ram's completely fallen for April. Mateus and Charlie, they're living together, they're sleeping together. Like, how fast is this all moving? It's good to guess, one of these couples actually slow things down and say, look, this is a bit weird, this is going fast. And I guess, in a way, April's right, because Ram just losing his girlfriend, it's kind of like, is this real, or is Ram just doing this? Is this kind of like a rebound thing? Is this his way of dealing with grief? So I think maybe that could sort of come into it. But looking at Ram, hearing his confession, it seems that actually isn't the case, and that he does completely love April.
I think that was kind of strange as well, seeing him fall for her so quick as well. I know that we can gather a bit of time's gone on, because if you take a look, like some people's hair had grown quite a bit and things, so we do know there's been quite a gap between this one and the one before, but even still, it can't have been that much, because April's still not sure where the relationship will go. But I kind of like that she's almost willing to see if it can change it and become a loving relationship, but she doesn't want to be as fast as Ram's being. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I agree on that as well. I think that's some good points that you bring up. So let's move on then a little bit in the episode. We're seeing the group actually overcome the prisoner, and it was thanks to Charlie, even though I've kind of bashed him so far, and I've said he didn't stand up and take responsibility, but it was Charlie that actually overpowered it. And like I mentioned earlier, I think it is a bit ambiguous as to how he done that. Did you get a sense of how he was actually able to overcome it? Did you think it was, was it too much for the monster to handle? Was it something like that?
I think for me, I had two options in my head. I either thought that Charlie was kind of holding on to this other confession or something he didn't want to let go, and he was fighting as strong as he could. Or the other one was how much grief he had for like all the people he lost and not being able to save them and things. I think it was, like I said, I think it was a bit ambiguous, and depending on who the viewer was, I think they could have took it either way, because it was never like clearly identified what the actual answer was. We just know that Charlie was the most guilty, but we don't know exactly what that guilt was from. We just have Charlie's word.
Well, that's the thing, you mention it being in that way and not having a like exact thing what done it. I'm the kind of person where I don't know if I really like that. I prefer to be sort of laid out and know exactly what it is, as opposed to being left to interpretation. And well, I'm not the smartest person, I'll admit that. So I was sat there thinking, hang on, what just happened? How did he do that? And it took me a minute to kind of progress it and think about what was going on. And I guess it is similar to night visiting and the fact that, the Lankin wasn't able to take on all of Tanya's grief. So the theories that you put out there, maybe it is some huge secret that Charlie's been keeping, and that was what was too much for it. But I like the idea it was like episode 3, and, it was just that the monster, it took on too much, and it was way more than it was actually expecting, and that was what caused it to have its downfall. Ended up with Charlie being its murderer.
I think it was, again, another episode from Doctor Who that was a lot like The Rings of Arcten, like with Claire and the Doctor and the Leaf, and just the thought of how much a memory or an action can hold, like with grief and things, and just how powerful those things are. And again, that sort of emotion and things has defeated a monster. I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing, but especially when you compare it to Doctor Who on episode 3, it seems to be a common theme throughout the episodes. I don't have a problem with it, but I definitely think you notice it because it hasn't been that long since the last one.
Yeah, I think that is the only downside. I think if you were to take this episode out this season and maybe drop this in next season and have the same reason, where it is very similar to episode 3, I don't think people would really pick up on it as much. But I think the fact that this is coming in 3 episodes after episode 3, then it becomes quite obvious, it is the same outcome. It's the same way that they've dealt with it. But at the end of the day, these don't have the sort of technology and things that the Doctor does. So I guess a lot of the ways that they do overcome monsters are going to be things that sort of end up coming back around again and again. So looking ahead to the coming weeks, we've only got 2 episodes left, but the way the episode ended, it actually left the group kind of, I guess you could say, splintered at the end of it. Do you think they're going to be okay going forward? Or do you think the confessions that we've had in this are going to cause ripples that are going to continue throughout the rest of this season?
I definitely hope it's not going to be something that's kind of brushed under the carpet. I think that's definitely one thing that Class does brilliantly with little plot lines and things. It doesn't give you the answers straight away. It kind of drags them out. A lot like this kind of underlying tension between Ram and Tanya. I think that's going to be something that'll play on the next series. And I definitely think we're going to see Ram try and confide in Tanya like he has with previous episodes. In regards to like April, I don't know where April will go because obviously things are on the rocks with the Ram. I don't think it's going to be something they're going to build straight away. I think Charlie and Mateus you'll probably see patch things up because I wouldn't say it was too bad between those. But it'll be interesting to see like where Miss Quill fits into all of it.
Well, that's the thing when you mention Charlie and Mateus. I think those two, they've confessed that they do love each other. So they do have a few things to work out in the fact that he's still scared of Charlie, but I think they're going to be okay. The rest of them, I think there are things that are going to continue, but because we've only got 2 episodes left, I kind of hope that they, put those issues aside and leave them until next season and then look at them sort of in a bit more detail rather than just brushing over them like you said. Because next week we've got Miss Quill venturing off to have the arm removed from her head. So that's going to take up 1 entire episode, and that leaves her with 1, which is the season finale. So I kind of hope that they skip it from there. Otherwise, it's going to be a case of trying to fix all those little cracks and then also tell the story of what is happening in that finale. So what I'm going to say is there will still be sort of tension between the class, but I think they're all going to come together, get on the same page, because they know they have to work together to overcome whatever it is going to come up against them in that final episode, which I'm guessing is probably going to be the Shadowkin, because we've seen them throughout the season. So I think that's kind of the big finale, and you kind of need everyone on the same page if you're going to take them on and stand a chance, because you need the brain box that is Tanya, you need Charlie, you need Miss Quill, everyone in there, and I don't know, I'm looking forward to it. I like to see the way that they come together, but I do think it needs to be something big that pulls them all in.
Yeah, I definitely think we haven't saw the last of the Shadowkin. Even in this episode, we kind of had like little plot lines where April could withstand the alien because she's still got Shadowkin in her veins and things. I definitely think we're going to see them return in some capacity. Whether or not April's still in control, God knows. But it's kind of like the Daleks for Doctor Who. It's an enemy that we're going to see keep coming back and back again. I kind of hope they don't next series, but I definitely think even in the end that we're going to see them all come together, but there's going to be still some tension there, and who knows, maybe it might cost someone's life, something drastic.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because if something like that happens, it's something big, and that would be exactly what they would need to actually pull that group together. But like you say, I kind of hope that we don't see too much more of the Shadowkin next season. I hope it's kind of all done and dusted with this one, and we can kind of move on to different monsters going forward. Speaking of moving on, the end of the episode, that's seen the return of Miss Quill, sporting a dramatic new look as she saved the day with her own free will, and the revelation that the Arn is now being removed. But what do you think this means moving forward?
I think it's going to be pretty interesting with Miss Quill. I think even the decision alone to save Charlie from the monster was kind of interesting. It's not something she had to do, and it'll be interesting to see how much, like, being with the doctor and being with the class and things, to see kind of like what influence that's had on her heart and things, and if at the end of the day she will do the right thing. Because I know for a while now that we've seen her say, like, she wants revenge, she wants to kill the Shadowkin, but when push comes to shove, I kind of think she won. I think out of her and Charlie, she's the lesser of two evils, and I definitely say her back's worse than her bite.
Do you think so? Because I mentioned before, if Charlie was given that chance and he was set to destroy the Shadowkin, I don't think he'd do it. But I think Miss Quill, if she was in that situation, I think she would be someone that would actually go through with it. Because you can tell that she wants revenge, and I think that is something that's, on the forefront, and you can really see it. Where with Charlie, it's been kind of, it's still been there, it's still been evident, but it hasn't been on the surface, and he's kept it hidden, and it only come out because of his confession. Whereas Miss Quill, I can see it kind of boiling over and her going through it, even if she doesn't sort of mean to do it, and it's just kind of a rash reaction. I could definitely see her just completely obliterating the entire Shadowkin if she was given any kind of opportunity. Do you not think so?
The only other thing as well, we don't know how long it's been for her, because she said it felt like a lifetime. Maybe she's come to terms with, like, her grief and what's going on in this universe she's going to be in next week. Who knows, maybe I wouldn't say she's forgiven them, but maybe she's come to terms with it, because she was always one that kind of, like, wore her heart on her sleeve, whereas Charlie, he kept it all in, and it was something he had to deal with on his own, whereas she was always kind of, like, at the forefront, and she wanted revenge and things. So now that she is free, I don't know. I just think it'll be interesting to see if she does go along with it. But I personally feel I don't think she would. I think she's definitely become a better person and kind of, like, let her hair loose and things, because we have seen her with the dramatic new look. And when you compare it to her usual, like, uptight, smart, and very, like, put together, she's kind of, like, let it go. And I definitely think she might have let their grievance go with the Shadowkin.
Well, you bring up an excellent point there, and it's something that I completely forgot about, and that was the fact that, time might have actually changed differently for her, so there might be a lot more time that's passed, as opposed to what we've seen in the classroom. Because I guess if they were taken out of time and space, you don't even know how long they were there. It could have been like a matter of minutes, or it could have been a lot longer. But regardless, Miss Quill seems to have been away for a long, long time, judging by the dialogue at the end of the episode. So maybe she has learned over time that she can forgive and she can forget. Or maybe it's the other way, and, that anger and everything else being away is just kind of enraged that. So maybe it's going to go the opposite way. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing which way it goes. I still say, given any kind of chance, she will take them out. But in regards to that sort of relationship with Charlie, I think that's kind of simmered. I think there was a lot of envy there and wanting to take him out, because he was the one that kind of went up against her and she was the whole resistance. But now, the fact that there's only the two of them left and they're the last of their species, I think it's going to be a case where they do look out for each other, and it will be the one free will that empowers that. They'll both have each other's backs. And I think it's something that Miss Quill is going to have to realise and kind of deal with. I think she's going to maybe struggle with that fact and then realise, yes, that this is what I do have to do. I mightn't want to do this necessarily, and it has been on wanting us to do it, but at the end of the day, this is the right thing, and she's a lot more good than the kind of evil person that we kind of thought that she was initially.
I think the thing is, we keep talking about, like, how much Quill's now going to change, but we also kind of think that how much is Charlie going to change, because he hasn't got that backup, and Quill was kind of like his bodyguard. And now, if Quill's in trouble, does that mean Charlie's going to intervene or something? It'll be definitely exciting to see, like, how that dynamic alone changes.
It really will. So, like I said, it's got lots that can happen in these last two episodes. We've got the whole story of Miss Quill, what's gone on there, how that's going to change her, and then that big finale to look forward to. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think we're going to have two awesome episodes to actually end this season. But we want to know what your thoughts were on this 6th episode of Class. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at Tardis_Talk. So let us know your favourite moments. But we're going to leave you with our quote of the week. So until next time, catch you later.
Bye.
I'm no longer your slave, Prince. I have my free will back. And I have my gun. And things. Things are gonna change around here.